internet, hello you absolute lovelies. Let's talk all about episode 2 of Daredevil Born Again, an episode that I really enjoyed. I do consider this in the upper tier of MCU TV, in the upper tier of Marvel TV. It's not quite episode 1 for me, which was just pure elated, mesmeric, how is this happening? But it is incredible TV. Very excited to talk about the visual aesthetic choices, some of the arcs they're going for, some of the punches not pulled, that Punisher moment. Very excited to dive into that. But before we get into the actual show, please hit that subscription bell. We are rapidly approaching 50K. We are right around the corner from hitting 44,000 on this page. When we hit 50K, I'm going to be doing a 50 comic giveaway. Every one of my subscribers will be eligible, going to give away comics from my own collection, some DC, some Marvel, some Image, some glorious stuff mailed right to you. So please hit that subscription bell. I cover movies, I cover TV, I cover comics themselves. Also, please leave a like on this video so the algorithm knows that you want me to do individual videos for each episode. They released 1 and 2 at the same time. A lot of people are doing just episode 1 and 2 review. No, I want to do each individual episode review. So please hit a like so this doesn't get buried and then 3 is a whole mess. And also, most importantly to me, let's have a conversation in the comments below. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought of episode 2. Go check out episode 1 if you haven't already. Leave a comment there as well. Let's talk about Daredevil Born Again. All right, so episode 2 follows that insane first episode of this new interpretation of Daredevil, this beautiful continuation of the Netflix show that's also its own thing. I talked all about how impossible that line was to walk, and this episode furthers that because we're having a Matt Murdock that feels like Daredevil is gone, but Matt Murdock doesn't know what his moral code is. He is clearly struggling with his faith. He is not going to church, it seems. He is having a hard time with his violence. We had that conversation with Kingpin in the first episode about his violent nature, and it feels to me like he hasn't been able to express it, and that all came out in one burst in this episode after he's like, you don't want this. I love that we're getting to see the boundaries of what he will do as a lawyer, and that moment of hypocrisy of him being like, you can't just go out and look to fight people at night. You can't do this. And the White Tiger literally being like, Daredevil's not around. And I love that Matt is having to look at himself from the outside. The reflection of the phone glass at prison is very, the reflection of him and his experience as vigilante, all while we're racing towards the Registration Act, all while we're having Wilson Fisk take power and in this episode clearly turn. He is a villain and he manipulates the audience into thinking like maybe he's actually trying to help New York until he's, threatening a commissioner and making sure the cops stay on his side of things. So we're seeing Fisk go back to his old ways. We're seeing him leverage actual mayoral power, but we're also having that rift between him and Vanessa grow and grow and grow. And I'm wondering that relationship therapy is clearly someone he would know is in relations with the Matt Murdock personal life. So is he just singularly seeing a relationship therapist for Vanessa? Because I do believe that's all that matters to him. Or is he doubled, down on this choice to also manipulate, Matt Murdock in its own way. So we've got those beautiful arcs all forming. We have him, putting his thumb on the police force and all those things. Meanwhile, Matt Murdock struggling with his faith, trying to figure out, how to defend this man when he has no proof. We do discover the character witness at the end of the episode, and we have that brutal fight scene, that really has so much impact because we haven't seen Daredevil this whole episode. I love that there's not a single moment of Daredevil in episode 2, and Matt Murdock feels more vicious than Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil's brutal, but he doesn't cross that line. Looks like he killed those cops. And one of the moments I really loved is that flash of Punisher iconography, because to me, symbols have power. To me, words are important. To me, you really need all of that to be clear. And I talked about this a fair amount over at Real Rejects. I'm doing reactions there, by the way. All of these episodes I'm reacting with Greg and Aaron, and those drop the moment the show is over, so please check those reactions out. But I talked a fair bit about the symbology of Punisher and how it's been appropriated by cops that Punisher would have nothing to do with. To protect and serve isn't to murder, and Punisher is a commentary. Punisher is a cautionary tale. He murders people. Those two symbols, the symbol of a police emblem and a Punisher symbol, have nothing to do with each other. They are nothing in common. And so to have that symbol be bastardized by, people that don't understand what it represents has always bothered me. So I love that the platform of a Daredevil show featuring the Punisher is publicly going, this isn't what this is. And I'm really excited to see that explored. I'm really excited to see the conversation about cops that go too far, especially in relation to Punisher, which has always been a fine line of seeing that symbol on certain things. And I think it's a very important conversation to have, and I'm glad the show is doing it. I also love that it happens while he's crossing his own line. Cops shouldn't cross that line, and that Punisher symbol represents that line. And in that moment, Daredevil crosses that line that he should never cross. So, I mean, after the events of episode 1 with Foggy, and I understood that moment where he waited until he heard Foggy was dead before killing Bullseye, or attempting to. He didn't die, but he's going to come back. But he attempted to kill Bullseye. He was willing to kill Bullseye, willing to cross that line. Seems like he was just willing to kill these guys too. So really interested where we pick up from in episode 3. And that's kind of the reason this episode didn't stick as strongly to me, is I do feel like we had that 1-year gap. I do feel like Daredevil hasn't been Daredevil for a year. But I would love to explore more of what he felt about getting that close to the line, what that means for him as compared to Punisher, like the conversation on the rooftop in season 2, or any of the conversations he has with Vincent D'onofrio's Kingpin about that boundary. I want to explore that, and I'm hoping that's what happens after the death or the beating of these two guys. Like, I want to see what Matt's gone through in this year. I want to feel that more, and I do feel like, some of the beats felt a little rushed, like the scene at White Tiger's house. I love the casualness of him just having the White Tiger suit in a case under his bed. I loved that. I thought that was, the guy, he doesn't have a cave to put his bat stuff in. He's a guy. So I really like that he's just a day-to-day guy that is taking on the Daredevil spot. Like, Daredevil's gone. Who's going to defend people? So I love that element. But I felt like that scene was very like, oh, well, found that real quick. And oh, this scene with the conversation with the wife. Things moved a little quickly in the second half of the episode that made it feel more like a general episodic show as opposed to the HBO, Showtime, Netflix feeling that felt so like prestige TV. So this episode didn't quite have the weight for me as the first episode, and I think that's just going to be like 1 and 3 are going to really hit. I have no doubt I'm going to love episode 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But this second episode, I'm like, man, I wanted a little bit more juice. But that's still, this episode's like an A- for me. The first episode was an A+. Still reveling in how good the show is. Like I said at the top, this is one of my favorite MCU shows, one of my favorite Marvel adaptations. 2 episodes in, I'm really loving the arc of Wilson Fisk being, in a position of power, but not knowing what to do with his hands kind of feeling. Like, he is doing this clearly to impress his father and to impress the people he feels like he needs to impress. That whole LaGuardia speech was fascinating. But he's losing Vanessa, and he needs to impress Vanessa. He needs to figure that out. We've got Matt, who's dating someone, who cares about someone, but while he's on dates, he's thinking about Fisk, he's distracted in those elements. So we've got these two guys that really, truly want to protect their city, and then you got White Tiger who's actively doing stuff about it, and he's the one in trouble, and then Matt representing him is such an interesting look at what Vigilante is to Matt now. I'm excited to explore all these themes. That scene was brutal and beautiful. That last fight was really powerfully choreographed. And yeah, the episode's shot so well. I love that, again, it feels like a different artist on a comic. I love that this feels like a graphic novel. I love the strings. I love the use of sound in both like how his powers are working, the atmosphere of New York, but also the score. The show is so freaking good. I'm having a great time with it. Hopefully you are too. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of episode 2. Are you also like A+ episode 1, A-, which is still top tier episode 2? I'd love to know what you thought of the arc going into the Vanessa situation. Do you think, my big question is, do you think Wilson is solely going to therapy to manipulate Matt Murdock, or do you think he's in therapy and then it'll be just a bonus? I'm really curious, like, his intentions of couples therapy, especially with Matt's a lady friend. So that's very intriguing. Yeah, let's talk all about Matt's journey in this episode. Do you think those guys are dead? What do you think about this journey of Matt not being Daredevil? Do you think we'll explore more of his feelings about not being in church and not addressing the practically killing Bullseye? Lots to talk about, so let's talk about it all in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, you made it to the end of this video, what are you waiting for? Please hit that subscription bell, hit the like while you're there, press some buttons, leave a comment. I will see you guys next week. Please do check out episode 1 if you haven't. Also, please, I did a comic book video of my comic recommendations to go alongside Daredevil Born Again. Comics that the show reminds me of, things you might want to read in conjunction with the show. Things about Muse, perhaps. The Charles Soule Ron Gardner run. Muse is coming. We saw him in episode 1. I think we saw him unmasked in this episode, perhaps buying and getting a book signed. So please, 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 I got some thoughts about Muse. I'm going to do a comic book video, so check that out as well while you're doing some Born Again content. Yeah, cannot wait for next week. Lots of stuff to come. I'll see you guys soon.